Hi honey bunnies, this is going to be a response to the tag that was started by Nate the K, which I think is a really interesting discussion about what it means to us individually to be a witch. And when I first discovered this tag and I started looking around at some of the videos that have already been made, I sat down and I wrote a few notes. So I think what I'm going to do is just read through what I actually wrote and give you guys a sense of what my initial intuitive responses were to this question. The first thing I wrote was, being a witch is a state of consciousness. The discipline is to consistently align myself with that state and spend as little time as possible being divorced from it. So I suppose what I mean by this is that for me, the idea of the word witch actually encompasses a whole bunch of different kind of belief structures, but not really belief structures, more kind of like codes of conduct, certain principles, ethics, guidelines, ways to live my life. And not only in terms of how I treat other people and how I treat the planet, but also in terms of how much fun I feel I'm entitled to have, how much success I feel I can garner, and basically just generally being self-loving, both in the physical aspect and also in the spiritual and emotional aspect. I think of witch as kind of an expression of a specific state. So for example, for one, when you're actually doing magic or ritual, you're in the magic or ritual state, right? We talk about being in the ritual state or the ritual mindset. And I think that's part of what it means for me, this idea of the word witch being in alignment with the idea of a certain state of consciousness that you bring into being and that you harness and that you practice over time and you strengthen as much as possible. But I think also it's about bringing that state out into the tangible realm, into my dealings with other people, into my interactions and into my perceptions of various different situations and relationships that I come across. I like to think that when I am thinking about the word witch, which for me holds a really positive, really powerful, really potent energy, I actually love the word and I'm proud to own the word, and I love to describe myself as a witch. I think it's a word that in itself has for me such a positive energy, I guess, attached to it. It's hard to explain, but I feel like when I'm actually aligned with the vibrational frequency of that word and what it means for me and how I translate it through my consciousness, I'm actually in a state where I can be empowered, where I can live honourably and behave honourably, where I can know that I'm not going to divorce myself from my principles or guidelines, and where I feel that I'm at one with the universe and I understand the interconnectedness of all things, and I'll maybe go into that a little bit later in this video. The next thing I wrote was, being a witch is a duty. It's about recognising how to best be of service and taking action on that. I really believe that, you know, and I think I'm believing it more and more as I get older. I think that if you claim to be able to train your mind and discipline your mind to bring certain things into being, and if you claim to be able to be steadfast in your core and understand what needs to be done and at what time and so on and so forth, then it makes sense, of course, that you would be in service to people who may need you for those kinds of things and for those particular kinds of skills. And it also makes sense that you would be in service to people who want to learn those kinds of skills. And it makes sense as well that you would be in service to the planet. I've said before that I don't necessarily feel that my particular brand of spirituality is earth-based per se, in the sense that I kind of align myself more with ideas of cosmos than I do of just this planet. However, I'm very fucking fond of this planet, and I feel that it is part of my responsibility to be somewhat of an ecological steward and to understand how I fit into that, how I'm not divorced from it. How, you know, there isn't a difference between man and nature. Man isn't the enemy of nature. It's only through assimilating ourselves with it and understanding that we're an intrinsic part of it that we're finally going to get over this desire to destroy it and this flippant behaviour which destroys it. You know, I think this whole modern environmentalist paradigm of man versus nature and man's bad for nature and, you know, our nature is intrinsically harming the planet, I think that's bad for business. I think actually for me what being a witch means in terms of anything earth-based is to understand that I'm one with it, I'm part of it, and if I hurt it, I hurt me. If I shit talk nature, I shit talk myself. And so, you know, just for an example, last weekend I volunteered to do 12 hours of litter picking. It was a hell of a day from 9 until 9. And for me, I was a witch every second of that time. You know, I was a friend and I was helping other friends, and we were cleaning up after a festival, and we were just making sure that the land, which is very old and is also partly a religious site, which is very a reverent site for Christians and so on, we were making sure that it was left in the condition that we arrived, that it was when we arrived, and we were making sure that the plant life was okay and that all the plastic was gone, and we were recycling everything, making sure everything was divided into different bags, and we literally worked from first thing in the morning till darkness came. And I feel I was a witch every second of that time. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody, but that's kind of how I feel about it. I feel that it is, a part of it is to be in service and to understand that your greatest power comes through not only when you're in the circle, not only when you're doing your thing with magic and ritual and so on, but when you're out in the world. It's almost a little bit like, and I don't want to get too severe on this, but I almost feel like if I'm a witch, then I have to be an ambassador for what that means. And no, it's not like I go around telling every single person I'm a witch. That would be silly. But I mean, you know, if I'm going to own the word for myself, then I have to bring the energies and the vibrations and the themes and the concepts and the emotions that I associate with witchcraft and with what it means to be a witch out into the world, out into life. And make sure that other people benefit from the fact that I'm a witch, and that I kind of can turn the energies of different places and different people up to that higher frequency, just through embodying the word witch and what it really means to me. The third thing I wrote was, witch is a word which has always felt natural and obvious as a descriptor, whilst also being full of intrigue, mystery, enigma, wonder and arcane wisdom. That's very true, you know. I've always known I was a witch from a really, really young age, and I have a video about that called, I think it's called Witchy Thoughts, I'll link it below. But yeah, you know, I think being a witch it's always been an organic descriptor, and it's always something that I would say that I was when I was a child, when I was playing games with other children, and it's always something that there's been a closeness to that word, and to the energy that I feel that word gives off for me, and I feel that I adopt it comfortably and naturally, and it does make sense. But there's also something about it even now that I find really intriguing and really potent, almost as though I don't necessarily own the concept of witchcraft, and neither does anybody else, kind of thing. There's really low-flying birds around here. It's stunning. I have a feeling that they're putting on a bit of a show for me, but I'm actually not looking at them. I feel bad. Oh, by the way, all day bees have been mistaking me for a flower, so hopefully that will stop as I'm filming. I don't want them to make a beeline for me. Did you see the wordplay? Did you enjoy that? So yeah, there's a two-tone feeling that I have to the word witch, where I feel that it's mine, I feel that I own it, I feel that I'm very comfortable with it, and I've always been one. But on the other hand, there's this intrigue, there's this mystery, there's this rabbit hole, and I keep going down it, and I feel always like a novice and always a little like an outsider too. Like there's always something new to learn, and I'm attracted to arcane wisdom. I'm attracted to old dusty books full of spells and weird kind of like Kabbalistic graphs and stuff. You know, I want to know about that stuff. I want to touch that stuff. I want to get close to it. I really enjoy occult jewelry and, you know, learning the properties of different crystals and just handling them and just touching them. It's almost like that world is a place that I visit and I just get a high on it, even though it's my everyday, because I'm a witch and it's what I do, you know, that's how I roll, that's my shtick. But there is this feeling of constant gifts and constant wonder. It never gets old. It never gets old for me. There's always something new, and I feel like always every second of my life is magical, and I'm always thirsty for the next piece of knowledge. So that's something really exciting about being a witch, is that even every single time I describe myself as one, it feels a little new and a little exciting for me. And I feel like a kid in a candy store. I know we say sweets over here, but kid in a candy store works. The fourth thing I wrote was, being a witch is a consistent acknowledgement of my own personal power and a symbol of my work in honouring that power and learning to harness and direct it. So for me, I don't really feel that being a witch has that much to do with necessarily petitioning deities and communicating with deities in order for them to do things on my behalf. For me, being a witch is about recognising the empowerment which runs through the very core of me and disciplining myself into harnessing it, using it, directing it. So it's about learning how to use my mind and how that works. It's about going beyond the mind and outside of ego. It's about really conquering and using that challenge of conquering all facets of myself in order to actually channel that power and direct that energy where I want it to go. So really it's a constant fine-tuning, and I am really the apprentice of energy. I am learning constantly about energy, and I'm learning to become its master. And so that's something that I would say. I feel that being a witch is about personal empowerment, personal responsibility, personal ownership and accountability, and above all, the ability to understand that I walk in this world, as Rumi said, like a lion, like a rose. Like a lion, like a rose. That's, for me, what it means to be a witch. That's how I walk every step of my life, like a lion, like a rose. Got a rhythm to it, hasn't it? I love it. And finally, I wrote the Witch's Pyramid with a little heart. The Witch's Pyramid, to know, to dare, to be silent, to will, and to go, that kind of fifth little addendum. I love the Witch's Pyramid. I think it really describes quite succinctly and attractively what the everyday of being a witch is about, and kind of the way that we see things and tackle concepts and address them. And I've tried very hard in this video not to say we too much. I don't think I've said it at all so far, because I'm talking about me and I'm talking about my personal response to being a witch. I think everybody is very different, but I do think the Witch's Pyramid is something that a great many of us actually subscribe to and resonate with, and with very good reason actually. To know, to dare, to will, to be silent, and to go. Those five, I feel, are really the pinnacle and the keystone for a great many witches. And I don't know, there's something about those words and those kind of commands, those sacred tenements. When I look at them, I feel like, yeah, that pretty much breaks it down. That's how I live my day to day, and that's how I work my practice, and that's how I hone my skills. And I think the Witch's Pyramid will always be relevant to me for that reason. And also, you know, you could take it as a little bite-size description of what it means to be a witch in practice and in theory. So those are my considerations, and obviously there are a great many more, but I just wanted to keep it to what I actually wrote down intuitively from my soul and from my mind. So yeah, fellow witches, much love, blessed be.